2021, and it's our regular city council meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bembas?
Here.
Mr. Blair?
Here.
Mr. Gillis?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Scarbeck?
Here.
Mayor Stoneburner?
Here.
We are all present.
At this time, we'll take a moment of silent prayer, and if you would please keep the families of Diane Strevel, the family of Diane Strevel and the family of Dan Oshashanik in your prayers, as they both have passed recently. Thank you. Will everyone please stand for the pledge? And I've got a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America
and
to
and
the
to the republic
which it
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
liberty and
justice for all.
I cannot wait till we're all back together and can say that in unison. It will be nice. At this time, may I have a motion to approve our agenda for this evening?
So moved. Support.
A roll call, please.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Gillis?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Scarbeck?
Yes.
Mayor Stoneburner?
Yes.
And Mr. Bembas?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. At this, we have two presentations this evening. The first one will be from the St. Clair County Sheriff, Matt King, and it's the activity report for the year, and we hear from them every 6 months, and it's that time again.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you.
me?
Yes.
I've done a ton of Zoom meetings, but I have not done one of these yet. So this is a new format for me, so I'm glad it's working. I'll introduce myself. I think I've met just about everybody, but my name's Matt King, and I am the new sheriff. I was appointed a little early as Tim took a position before the term was ending sometime around November. And then, of course, I was sworn in for my first regular term on January, or close to January. I was a little early so I could swear in all the deputies in the department. Happy to be here. I've been a part of the Sheriff's Department for 22 years, and I was the position of Road Patrol Captain for 3.5. So I've dealt with and worked with many of you on other things in the past, especially Denise Gerstenberger and some of the other folks on here. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad to be able to address you all and give the report, and of course answer any questions that I can. And as I always do, if I can't answer the question, I'll write it down and get the answer for you. So looking at the report, year to date for 2020, 2,726 calls for service, and throughout the year, it looks like kind of like the rest of the county really did that. You know, January, February were slower times. They always are. And then when the pandemic kind of hit in March, was kind of going normal. And then April went kind of backwards. And then there was a slow roll to where we're at now. We've been very busy throughout the whole county, and as well as in the city of Algonac. We've seen the kind of what a lot of us predicted as far as calls for service and the type of calls. Unfortunately, people being cooped up and a lot of their livelihoods being taken away has turned into frustrations at home and abound. We've had an uptick in domestics and the severity of domestics, assaults, and other type of disturbances within homes. You know, a lot of us predicted this early on, that it would catch up with us because we were kind of slow for a few months as people were trying to lock down and do what they were told to do by our government and health officials. As we learned more about the virus and people became more and more constrained and the stress built, we've seen we've seen an uptick in those type of calls, and unfortunately, a lot of people didn't get the services they needed because they either were afraid to get them or they weren't available in the customary ways that they're used to. Services such as mental health services, substance abuse disorder services, and regular medical services. So we've been very busy. We're staying ahead of it and everything. As far as employees with COVID, we're doing okay. We've had some get sick, but everybody's back to work usually within 10 days or so. And we've only had a couple hospitalized. Those were jail personnel. So I could go on and on about the year, but we've all lived it. And I don't think anybody wants to hear the word COVID again, but it's kind of what we're dealing with. It's impacted us in the law enforcement as well. So I'd like to open it up for any questions that I can answer on any topic relating or not relating to the Sheriff's Department.
I have one question, Sheriff. When we're looking at the activity report, is an activity listed once on there so that even though it has, there may be multiple things going on, it's only listed once in here?
So what you'll see is, take for instance, we'll just go with the top one, animal complaint. In December, there were 4 animal complaints, but of course the total calls for service, it's listed on there. So if there was a domestic where somebody also stole something, you're not going to see a larceny and a domestic, if that's what you're asking.
Yes, that's what I was. Like, would it indicate other things are happening as well? Okay.
No, typically not. Now, if there are multiple charges, it may show up that way because the way our data collection works. But on your typical call, no. But if I call them and I get and I arrest you for domestic, I'll just stick with domestics, with domestic assault, and then you assault our officer, there might be another charge in there. But it won't double up on your calls for service on the bottom. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. Does any other council member have a question?
Yes, I do. Sheriff, I got a question for you. What is your stance on medical marijuana and marijuana dispensaries in our county?
So medical marijuana, obviously we all know, is passed by a vote from the Michigan residents. I know that there's been some action taken by the city of Algonac, which I commend because it controls it. We all know that medical marijuana, I shouldn't say we all know, I guess I'm putting my opinion in, but medical marijuana was pushed forward in a very obscure law that was hard to read that opened the doors for recreational use marijuana. I believe it's something that needs to be controlled. And, it's for a long time, I described marijuana as a controlled substance that has no controls because the law was written so obscurely. I think a dispensary, I've spoke out against having dispensaries in our communities several times. If somebody wants to use marijuana medically or recreationally, it's legal now. Law enforcement does not choose what is legal and what's not legal. But when we're talking about how we're going to impact our communities, a dispensary has proven to be more trouble than income. And it's shown to have long-term negative effects on communities. You think of a community, and when you think of that word, you think of the people that live there, the people that want to do business there, want to raise their families there. So if those folks want to use, like I said, marijuana, it's legal to do so as long as it's done properly, obviously, just like anything else. But if you bring a dispensary in, there's always promises of large gains financially. But if you look at other states that have been ahead of us, we have pictures and snapshots of what happens to those communities. And I've been to trainings about how communities in Colorado have been affected, the housing market going down in those communities because so many of them are, so many of the houses have the grow operations going on inside. And the houses become less desirable, therefore your tax base goes down. Not to mention, you know, if you have a dispensary in your community, you're gonna have people from outside coming to get that substance. Well, guess what? There's a good chance they're using it on the way there and on the way back. And I'm not saying that everybody uses it irresponsibly, but there's not dispensaries in every community like there are party stores in every community. Therefore, you're going to have everyone coming, not just your local person that happens to live around the block. You're going to have people from other communities, probably Macomb County, certainly any surrounding communities, and you're going to have a concentrated of marijuana users in your community. And statistically, it shows that you're going to end up having more crashes from people being under the influence of marijuana. You're going to show your children that using a substance, a mind-altering substance for whatever reason is acceptable and normal. And, you know, individually, if each home wants to tell their child that marijuana is acceptable and normal under legal circumstances, that's their right, and it's not my place to interject into that. But if the community of Algonac or any other community says, hey, we want to start opening up shops, well, quite frankly, the community members and the board members, and I do not mean to be disrespectful, but please bear with me. You're going to be telling everybody in that community that this is what we're about. We're going to make money on this, and it's acceptable in our community. And you're also going to be telling the children in that community that that's what you believe in. So I don't think it's good for small town communities. I know some larger communities in Macomb County, quite a few of them, and Oakland and Wayne have some large dispensary shops. And quite frankly, their population is of the size where I just don't think they're bringing people in from other communities. They probably can sustain the business there because of the population density. But in a place like Algonac, or quite frankly, anywhere in St. Clair County, you're going to have transient users coming and going, and comes with that is other crimes. And I think eventually you're going to have lower housing market. Your tax base is going to go down, and you won't see that for a while, but it'll happen. I look at it like this, and I said this at a different village last year meeting that we're talking about it. If I'm looking to move into a community and I can move into Algonac, Ira, Clay, Cotterville, or St. Clair, and I've got kids, or maybe I don't have kids, and one place has a dispensary and the other ones don't, I'm not moving to the one with the dispensary. I'm just not. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to deal with the people driving in and out, using it. I don't want the extra risk of accident, injury, theft, you know, the other crimes come along with it. And I certainly don't want my house that I buy to be less possibly in 5 years because of the dispensary. So that's my stance. It's probably rather boisterous or strong, but I stand by it. And you know, I know the board and the city of Algonac will make its own decision, and we'll continue to police the best we can. But I believe I believe the answer to that question tells you how I feel, and it's backed up with facts and studies and schools that I've gone to through law enforcement.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question, comment?
Mayor Stoneburner,
Actually,
Mike.
I do.
Corey?
I have a question, if I may. Sheriff King, good evening. Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It sounded like it was heavy opinionated on your end on how you felt about it and how strongly you feel. And you say you have some statistical information to back up what you have stated. I'd like to see that statistical information. If there's any way that you can round that up and get it to the council members, that might be something we'd like to see on paper. I don't expect you to have it within a day or two, of course, but if you can come up with that statistical information about where dispensary moves into a neighborhood and what it creates, I would like to actually see that information as well.
Sure, I'll dig up whatever information I can have. And I understand that came across strong and rather opinionated, and of course, coming from a law enforcement angle, you know, I'm looking at it probably in a singular lens, but it's the training I've had as well. I don't want you to think it's just the cop in me that's spewing that out. It really is some training. But yeah, I'll try to dig up whatever information I can and get it to you.
Of course not. I understand. I have a small law enforcement background myself, so I understand where you're coming from. I'd just like to see some statistical, I'm having struggling with that word, information when you can get it to us. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Mayor Stoneburner.
Councilman Bembas?
Yes. Hi, congratulations, Sheriff, and welcome to Algonac.
Thank you.
I just want to say, what do you need from Algonac and Algonac Council in particular to help you be successful in working with Algonac?
You know, I think the easiest, quickest answer is more of the same. We've had a great working relationship with everybody in Algonac. Denise is awesome to work with. I'm not just saying that because I can see her, but she communicates well. She runs things by us. Any concerns you have or anything that you guys and gals need that you're not getting, please let me know. That's the best way you can help me is help me help you. You know, we have a great relationship. We have a contract with you, and we want to continue the relationship we have with everybody down there. It's you know, years ago before the contract, we obviously had a presence down there, but we didn't have the connection as strongly as we do now. It's a large county. It's a weirdly shaped county. You know, we always say if you're in Yale and you need to get to Algonac or vice versa, you can't get there from here, you know. But the relationship we've built with Algonac in the contract has really been able to get us to have a better, you know, community relationship with everybody down there in the whole south end. So more of the same communication. Please don't hesitate to ask or let me know if something's not working out or if you need more or something specific from us. Thank you for the
Thank
question.
you. Anyone else? Well, thank you, Sheriff. We appreciate it. And you did very well for your first go-to meeting. Very well. Thank you very much. All right. Our second presentation is what we all look forward to, especially me because I love numbers. It's our audit report, and Curtis McBride will be presenting to us tonight. Curtis?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. As the Mayor indicated, my name is Curtis McBride. I'm from McBride Manley & Company. We are the CPA firm that audits the City of Algonac's financial statements. I am our firm's managing partner, and I'm our firm's GASB and audit director. And with me this evening is also Amy Delia from our firm. She is our firm's audit manager, and she was the team leader for the city's audit this year. And we are here this evening to present the results of our June 30, 2020 audit of the City of Algonac. Now, I know all of you, I believe, probably have a copy of my presentation so you can follow along. But really quickly, before I actually get into those slides, I want to talk about our audit opinion first, which is actually the most important part of the audit. So there are three types of opinions you can receive from your auditor. There is what we call a clean or unmodified audit opinion, which means we believe the financial statements are fairly stated and they're in compliance with our professional standards. Then there's what we call a modified audit opinion, which means that for the most part, we feel like they are in compliance, but there may be a few exceptions. And then there's what we call an adverse audit opinion, which means that we do not believe the financial statements are reliable and they're not in compliance with our standards. So before I get into the slides, I am pleased to announce that the city did receive a clean or unmodified audit opinion from our firm. So that's the best opinion you can receive from your auditor. Now, I just want to clarify, we're just providing an opinion on the accuracy of your financial statements. We're not providing an opinion on the financial health of the city. That's not the primary focus of our audit. So now I'm actually moving over to the slides. The first fund I want to talk about briefly is the general fund. Now, the general fund primarily derives its revenues from property taxes, state shared revenues, federal, state, and local grant money. So the first slide is actually the balance sheet for the general fund. So you can see for the year ended June 30, your general fund had about $2,383,000 of assets on hand, and you had $122,000 of liabilities against those assets. So you actually finished the year with an ending fund balance level of about $2,261,000. Now, to put that into perspective, the Michigan Department of Treasury recommends that at a minimum, your fund balance level be at about 10% of annual expenditures in the fund. Now, we're a little bit more conservative. We really think that a community the size of Algonac, because of it's smaller, that minimum fund balance level should be more like 15 to 20%. But I am pleased to say that at $2.261 million, your fund balance level is actually more than 100% of your annual expenditures in that fund. So in my opinion, your general fund balance is healthy at the end of June 30, 2020. Now looking at the income statement, which is the next slide for the general fund. Here we're looking at 2019 and 2020. I'll get into details in slides as far as looking at the revenues and expenditures specifically. But you can see that total revenues actually went from $2,599,000 in 2019 up to about $2,737,000 for 2020. And you can see that's primarily because you did have an increase in property taxes during the year. And also you did have an increase to licenses and permits. So you actually generated more in building permit revenues during 2020 than you did in 2019. And you can see that in looking at expenditures, comparing the 2 years, you spent about $2.402 million in 2019, and you spent about $2,343,000 in 2020. One of the major differences or decreases would be that back in 2019, you guys actually made an additional $100,000 contribution to your pension plan. And that was in addition to what you were actuarially required to make. So you guys voted to make an extra contribution back in 2019. So you can see you generated about $2,737,000 of revenues. You spent about $2,343,000 during the year. So you actually had a net increase to your fund balance level of about $394,000 for 2020. Now, in the next slide, we're specifically looking at the sources of revenue for the general fund, again, comparing 19 to 20. As I mentioned, total revenues did go up. You can see that property taxes actually went up by about $62,000 from 2019 to 2020. So that's good. That's a positive trend. And we'll look into some trends in a couple subsequent slides. And as I mentioned, you can see licenses and permits also went up. That actually went up by $48,000, a $48,000 increase from 2019 to 2020. Now in the next slide, we're looking at expenditures by type for the general fund. Again, comparing 2019 to 2020. You can see that some of the major differences would be in general government expenditures. You can see they were $695,000 in 2019, and they were only $570,000 in 2020. That's where the additional pension, a big part of the additional pension contribution came from back in 2019. Also, you can see fire, actually that's one increase. Fire expenditures went from $181,000 in 19 to $251,000 in 2020, and that's because your fire chief was made full-time during the 2020 fiscal year. And as I mentioned in my previous slide, you can see total expenditures actually went down. They went from $2,402,000 down to $2,343,000 for 2020. In my next slide, we're actually looking at the major local street funds. So these funds are quite a bit different than the general fund in that these are what we call special revenue funds. We call them special revenue funds because their resources are restricted for a special purpose. That's for the maintenance and construction of streets throughout the city. These funds derive their revenues almost strictly from the state of Michigan Act 51 fund to help the city maintain its streets. So here's the balance sheet for those two funds. You can see the major street fund finished the year with about $940,000 of assets on hand. Didn't have a lot of significant liabilities, only about $1,000. So it actually finished the year with an ending fund balance level of about $939,000. The local street fund had about $457,000 of assets on hand, only had about $1,000 of liabilities, so it finished the year with an ending fund balance level of about $456,000. Now on the next slide, this is the income statement for the year for these two funds. You can see the major street fund generated about $317,000 during the year. It spent about $214,000 during the year, so it actually had an increase to its fund balance level of about $103,000. And as I mentioned in my previous slide, it finished the year with a fund balance level of about $939,000. And that's actually more than 100% of its annual expenditures. So the major street fund also has a healthy fund balance level. The local street fund generated about $309,000 in total revenues, and it spent about $132,000, so it had a net increase to its fund balance level of about $177,000 and finished with a $456,000 fund balance level. And also in this fund, that fund balance level is more than 100% of its annual expenditures. So in my opinion, both your major local street funds have healthy fund balance levels. Now you did have a construction project going on in local streets during 2020. So you had Washington and Mill Street repairs. So that was over in the local streets during the 2020 audit year. In my next slide, we're getting into some of the trend analysis. So here we're looking at state revenue trends. So when you look at the middle column, that's the state revenue sharing. So that's the revenues that are distributed to the general fund from the state. And then over on the far right, we're looking at distributions to the street fund. So these are the distributions that go to the major local streets from the state. So here we're going back to 2014. You can see that the state gave the city about $384,000 in state revenue sharing during 14. That number jumped up over $400,000 through 2017. And for June 30, 2020, you generated about $421,000 in state revenue sharing. So that's a positive trend. Looking at distributions to the streets, starting in 2014, you can see you received about $279,000 from the state. That number jumped up over $400,000 through the end of 2018. You can see it jumped up all the way to $466,000 in 2019. 2019 was a unique year in that you received an extra $48,000 from the state. That was a one-time disbursement. So that explains why it went from $466,000 in 2019 down to $435,000 for 2020. Now, in the next slide, we're looking at property tax revenue trends for the city. Again, going back to 2014, you can see the city generated about $1,185,000 of property tax revenues back in 2014. That number came up over $1.2 million through the end of 2016. And you can see you generated about $1,383,000 for 2020. So that's about you generated about $197,000 more in property tax revenues in 2020 than you did in 2014. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is if we actually took this back further to 2007, for instance, you actually generated about $1.5 million in property tax revenues in 2007. So even though you generated up over $1.3 million in 2020, that's still $100,000 less in property tax revenues you generated in 20 than you did back in 2007. And that's not because property values have declined in the city. It's because there was a housing market crisis in 2009 and 2010 where the housing values declined drastically in a very short period of time by as much as 25%. But due to the statutory limitations placed on property taxes, such as Proposal A and the Headley Amendment, which limits the increase to property taxes in a given year, it's taking a long time for the city to climb out of that hole, from 2009, 2010. Now, in the next slide, we're looking at the general fund balance level going back to 2014. So you can see you finished 2014 with about a $1.328 million fund balance level. That number went up over $1.6 million for 2016. It then came down to about $919,000 in 17. That's because in 2017 you spent about $800,000 for the seawall repairs. That's when that occurred. And then you can see it fully recovered in 2018. That's because the state actually gave you money to help offset the costs associated with the seawall repair in that audit year. And as I mentioned, you finished the year with a $2.261 million fund balance level in 2020, which in my opinion is healthy. Now, the last two funds I want to talk about briefly are the water and sewer funds. These funds are what we call proprietary funds, and we call them that because they're more similar to a for-profit private business, and they're accounted for that way. In other words, the city, typically owns the water and sewer plants and all the major equipment, and it charges the city residents for use of those systems. So in looking at the balance sheet, you can see the sewer fund had about $2.689 million of total assets on hand. It only had about $247,000 of liabilities against those assets. So it finished the year with a total net position of about $2,442,000, or about the unrestricted portion of the net position was about 80% of your annual expenditures in that fund, which is healthy. The water fund had about $9.388 million of assets on hand. It only had about $580,000 of liabilities against those assets, so it actually finished the year with about $8.8 million in total net position. So in my opinion, both your water and sewer funds have healthy net position levels. In the next slide, this is the income statement for these two funds. So you can see the sewer fund generated about $472,000 in revenues during the year. It ended up using about $42,000 of its net position, so it had a slight loss during the year. The water fund generated about $985,000 of revenues during the year, and it actually had an increase to its net position level of about $121,000 during the year. So that's all I have for the funds. I just want to spend a quick moment talking about our audit process. Our audit is performed in all the major accounting functions. So this would include purchasing, cash receipts, utility billing, adjusting journal entries, payroll, and bank reconciliations. So we're actually looking at all of these transactions, all the major accounting areas. For purchasing, we're actually pulling invoices and looking at samples of invoices. Same thing for cash receipts, utility billing. We're making sure that residents are being billed for the actual usage and at the rates which have been approved by you, the city council. We're also looking at payroll, making sure city employees are being paid for time actually spent working at the approved rates. And of course, our year-end reconciliations are performed to help put together that audited financial statements, that large bound document that you should have received. And of course, similar to what Sheriff King had mentioned in his presentation, we do have a great relationship with the city. We are in contact with the city throughout the year, primarily Linda, the treasurer. We assist with any questions regarding transactions, and this really helps us identify any potential accounting or auditing issues early. We like to head those off during the year. There's nothing worse to us, as an auditor, if we have no communication throughout the year is over, we come in for our audit and we discover issues. So it really helps us head those off early. And of course, we help with all the state filings, the Act 51 report, the F-65, some of the state revenue sharing reports, and of course, we submit our audit to the state of Michigan. That's all I have for my presentation. I try to keep it as brief as I possibly could. Are there any questions?
Does anyone have a question, comment?
Mayor Stoneburner, I'd just like to say thank you, Mr. McBride and your team. And I think this is either 7 or 8 years in a row where I've made a motion that I'd like to make a motion Linda Mackey cannot retire, ever. Great job, Linda. Thank you.
I also want to thank, go ahead, Mr. McBride.
I'm sorry, and I just did want to make one comment. Sometimes I get questions about fund balance levels, about, what is an appropriate fund balance level when there's a state minimum there. And I think, unfortunately, due to the pandemic in our current environment, this is exactly why you need a cushion in your fund balance level. You need to be prepared in the event that something like this occurs, because we don't know what the next several years could, what could happen with property taxes or what might happen with state revenue sharing in the future. And this is why, you prepare for the worst and have a strong fund balance level.
Well, I would like to thank you, Mr. McBride, Ms. Delia, and Linda Mackey, the hero from Algonac today. The last few years, it's just been I've been amazed at how healthy things are getting, and we make decisions based, of course, on our budget, but we have things budgeted, money set aside for things. So when we get hit with something, like we bought a car during this year, or a couple of vehicles, it's not a surprise. We're prepared for it, and we want to thank Mr. McBride and his team and Linda Mackey for steering us in the right direction. And in fact, I know Linda would say it's a team effort. It's everyone working together on the budget and doing everything, but this shows us that it's also important, and it's nice. It sounds kind of funny, but this is the bright spot, I guess, in this pandemic, is that we have something like this to look at, something very positive to look at, when lots of the news is doom and gloom. And so it's good. Thank you very much. Anyone else have comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, I'm seeing none. Okay. Thank you very much. And you have a wonderful year.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Curtis.
And I will second that motion from Mr. Bembas that Linda not retire. I like that. All right. Next, it is time for public comments. Each person is for 5 minutes. You state your name and where you live before you give your comments. And do we have anyone on here that would like to speak? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. I see a couple people that are in the audience. If you'd like to speak, can you let us know if you want to speak? If not, we'll go on with our meeting. All right, we'll go on. Have the city manager's report today. But now we're at consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept today's consent agenda? And that includes, let me get my paper. It includes city council meetings from our last meeting on January 5th, 2021, departmental reports, which are the blight enforcement, building, DPW, finance, fire department, and water department, and our communications and notices, boards and commission roster, and the housing commission meeting minutes from November 16th, 2020. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gillis,
Yes.
Ms. Harris, Kathy, Ms. Harris,
Kathy Harris?
Me? Yes.
Mr. Martin, Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Scarbeck,
Yes.
Mayor Stoneburner,
Yes.
Mr. Bembas,
Yes.
and Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. We have no unfinished business, so we'll get right into our new business. The city attorney has requested that we approve the written findings of fact and order demolition of 155 Lock Haven. All costs associated with the demolition or a cleanup of the property will be reimbursed by the property owner, and a lien may be placed on the property to ensure collection. May I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the written findings of fact and order of demolition for 135 Lock Haven as presented, and direct the city attorney to take such legal action as necessary to carry out the terms and provisions of the orders.
Support.
Second.
Discussion? Comments? Questions?
Mayor Stoneburner, assume at this time that the owner still has not submitted any type of action plan to redeem the property?
No. And the owner did not attend the hearing as well. I will say that our Dangerous Buildings Commission has been, I think, the busiest one ever this past year. And I know I had some comments from residents about all the written findings of fact and order of demolition that we've been dealing with, and why are they all happening right now? Well, these were in process, but because of the COVID-19, things had to be put on hold, and now we're just catching up with these. So it's not like, I mean, it's things that need to be done, but that's why they're all coming really close together.
Mayor Stoneburner, Mike Bendis again. I think this is one of the reasons these type of actions and us dealing with blight and our city manager dealing with blight, that our property values and therefore our property taxes are going up so high. You know, and this will, in the long run, help Algonac to achieve even better neighborhoods and better property tax income for our citizens.
I think you're right. I agree with you on that. Anyone else have any comments, questions, concerns?
Mayor Stoneburner?
Yes.
This is the city manager, Denise Gerstenberg. I just wanted to let everyone know that every time these written findings of fact and order for demolition go to city council, the owner of the property now has 60 days to respond. So if there is no action taken within 60 days, that is when the city attorney can then move to circuit court.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Any other comments, questions? Jake, is that a hand up or a question?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
I saw that and I thought maybe you had something to say. All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Scarbeck?
Yes.
Mayor Stoneburner?
Yes.
Mr. Bembit?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Gillis?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we're being asked by Joe Vernier, our DPW foreman, to approve the DPW dump truck repairs. This is the truck that's used to plow and salt city streets, and we want it ready for any upcoming inclement weather, which we probably could get any day now. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve payment to Bill McDonald Ford in St. Clair, Michigan for dump truck repairs in the amount of $2,139.07.
Support.
Discussion?
Mayor, Mike Bembis again. What do you know what year the truck is? How old our truck is?
I don't know. Mrs. Gerstenberg, do you know?
I'm sorry, Mayor Stoneburner, I do not know.
Okay. It's, as far as we know, it's not coming to the end of its life cycle and we're just throwing money at it. It's just a one-time thing and the truck's still in great condition.
I'm not going to say it's in great condition, but it's not at end of life.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Scarbeck?
Yes.
Mayor Stoneburner?
Yes.
Mr. Bembis?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Gillis?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we're being asked by Linda Mackey, our treasurer, to approve the purchase of Microsoft SQL, a Microsoft SQL server. We did have this in our budget for the fiscal year 2021. And the server is a database management system whose primary function is to store and retrieve data. The quote was provided to us by, our city provider, IT Right, provided the quote for the new server. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of one Microsoft SQL Server 2019 standard license from IT Right, whose address is 5815 East Clark Road, Suite G, Bath, Michigan 48808, in the amount of $3,503.73.
Support.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Scarlett,
Yes.
Mayor Stoneburner,
Yes.
Mr. Bembas,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Gillis,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
motion carries.
Next, we're being asked to approve our accounts payable and payroll. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve accounts payable and payroll in the amount of $441,372.60.
Support.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Stoneburner,
Yes.
Mr. Bembas,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Gillis,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Scarbeck,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Next on the agenda is, what's next on our agenda?
Thank you, Mayor Stoneburner. It looks like we will be paying our building official, approving the Code of Ordinances supplement. We'll have our written findings and fact in order of demolition for 1830 St. Clair River Drive. Approve a contract with the pool architect, set all the budget dates, and we may be looking at an amendment to our accessory structure ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And now it's time for council comment. Councilman Martin?
I pass.
Councilwoman Harris?
I want to congratulate Linda Mackey, treasurer, and staff on the good job that they did for this last year. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Scarbic?
I just want to thank our sheriff for everything they do for our community. And I also want to thank Linda Mackey and staff for another great year. Thank you guys. God bless and have a good night.
Thank you. Councilman Blair?
Good evening. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everybody is healthy and well. I would like to piggyback on the other council members as well by thanking Linda Mackey and her staff for another phenomenal audit. I'd also think that I'd like to give a shout out to our city council. I think we're making some great decisions as it shows on our on the budgets and the monies that we have available to us. And we're still making the needs that we need to meet for our city and still making good choices in doing so. So I'd like to give a shout out to everybody as well. My condolences as well to the family of Diane Strevel and the family of the Oshishanics, two big players in the city of Algonac here. God bless. And I hope everybody has a great night. Stay safe, and hopefully it'll start warming up soon.
Thank you. Councilman Gillis?
Hello, everyone. I would also like to say great job to Linda and her staff for the great audit, and have a great night, everyone.
Mayor Pro Tem Bembas?
Hi. Linda, how many years have you been the treasurer in Algonac? Mike. Hold
I think she said too many.
10 years.
How many?
She said 10 years. So I'm sure, because I've only been here 7, I'm sure Ray has seen a lot. And it is such a blessing to have you on the team because even before I get to report, I see, oh, okay, McBride. I'm like, okay, Linda's done a great job again, even before I look at it. And you're a very valued member of the staff, and it is appreciated. I want to talk about property values a little bit and what the city is doing. Thank you, Ms. Gerstenberg and team, for your continuous work on blight and the demolitions and our parks and infrastructure, because all those things end up snowballing and there's a synergy to it. And if you look at the way our property tax revenue is increasing, it's on a very upward angle that keeps trending even more upward, and that's good. Now the thing is to keep that snowball going and getting even bigger in a positive way. We have to find infrastructure things that need to be fixed. That's why I'm always talking about how old is that truck. And we've got the money. We either start fixing everything that can be fixed, or we got to start thinking about giving it back to the citizens. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. I received a letter from the Council on Aging, and I just want to share with you that they're thankful for all our support and for working with them to reach their goal of providing essential assistance to the seniors in our community throughout the pandemic. And I know each and every one of us have helped in one way or another, working to make things better for our seniors in Algonac, and I appreciate it, and so do other people. It's not gone unnoticed. Also, I would like to share that each year, as most people know, you're watching this at home, that our historical society, the Algonac Clay Historical Society, they make sure that we have a place to put Santa's letters in and get them mailed. And each year they get sent to Santa, and Santa and his elves answer all those letters. Well, this year, the Dear Santa letters was a success again. It's really great. The Martha and Evan Shemansky make sure those letters get out to Santa, so that they can be taken care of. And this year, Santa and his elves responded to 175 youngsters. 5 more letters came in after they were already sent off to Santa. And they made a special delivery to Santa to make sure that those 5 letters were there, and those children also received an answer from Santa. I would like to thank a few of Santa's elves, and I know some of their names. Santa shared them with me, but it's Marilyn G. and Susan K., Pam A., Brian C., Mary A., Donna S., Nancy L., Judy W., Terry W., Martha S., and Evans. We're so happy to have so many elves helping Santa. I think he called extra people in because there were so many at our drive-by parade that we had. So we're looking forward to that. And I just want to thank, I'm hoping Santa hears from somebody that we're very pleased that he answered all the children's letters that came in from Algonac. And I also would like to thank our DPW. I know Henry's Club has been asking for snow so that people can use the sleds at the Lion Field, but I'm sure DPW is pleased we don't have a lot of snow. But have you noticed they get out at the worst possible time? They were called out Christmas, they were called out on holidays and different things. I give a shout out to them. All of us want to just stay home and maybe not even watch it coming down, depending on who you are, but some don't even like watching the snow come down. But they're out there working in it to make sure that if we have to go out, we're going to be safe. And I really appreciate that. It doesn't matter day or night, they're out there. And another shining light that we have here in Algonac at the city offices is our treasurer, Linda Mackey. We want to thank her. But I know she knows she doesn't do it alone. She works with a team there, and everyone on the administrative team works together on the budget. I know you work really hard on it, and I know that's going to be coming up here pretty soon for us. So there's no breathing room for our city employees. They just they go from one project to another just to keep everything running smoothly in Algonac. And I think that it has. I think things are running very smoothly. I hope it continues on like that, even during the pandemic. I think we're getting by very well as a city, and I hope it continues on. But I also hope the pandemic ends very soon. So I want to thank everybody for that. And please remember, if there's somebody in your neighborhood that isn't getting out or doing anything, give them a call, give them a wave, just smile at them. Just, make a contact with them somehow, because there's a lot of people out there that can't get out, and this has been a really rough time for them. So make sure you reach out, be nice, be kind. That's a good choice every single time, is to be kind. So with that, Councilman Blair, what you got for me?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bembas,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Gillis,
Yes.
Ms. Harris, Mr. Martin, Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Scarbeck,
Yes.
Mayor Stoneburner.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Good job, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Wait, never mind. Jake hung up on me.